Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Is that a bit too loud? Makes me sound like God. If I don't fall off this stage by the end of my presentation, it will be an absolute miracle. So don't laugh too much if I take a tumble. I've got the unenviable task of starting the day and trying to make sure that everyone's awake and engaged and start to get you thinking and set up a lot of what's going to follow today. So I want to make sure that you're actually not asleep, paying attention. Let me start with a question. What is the purpose of your organization? Just shout out from the audience. I want to capture a few things and then see if at the end of the session whether or not they're consistent. So why does your organization exist? If you're a business, if you're a bank, what is the reason for your organization to exist in the world today? Anyone? Profits. Okay, you're in my blacklist. Any more? Fun. I need to come and work for your company. Creating value, that's a good one. Any others? Any more? Say again? Improving the world. Okay, so that's a good place to start this presentation, improving the world. Because that's what we are trying to help our clients do. We're trying to help our clients exist for more than making profits. And I don't blame you, in seriousness, I don't blame you for saying making profits, because that is, a lot of companies believe that's the reason they exist. A lot of banks believe that's the reason they exist. I spoke to ING, to about 500 bankers a few months ago, and I asked that question, and around the room there were 200 people saying, profits, we exist to make money. And I said, well, I'm very sorry, because if you continue to feel like that, in 20 years you probably won't exist anymore as a company. And so what we're talking about today is why a company exists beyond profitability, beyond making money. And I'm going to put it over to a video to get us started from Howard Schultz, the CEO of Starbucks.
I'm not going to be constrained by the four walls of the spreadsheet canvas.
Make it a bit louder.
I want to talk about doing good and making money, and how that maybe the real secret of Starbucks' success is how you treat people, different from many other companies.
I'm glad you asked me that, because the bottom line is just a goal, but the question is, how do you get there? I think for us, going back to the late 80s, before we were a public company, when we were dreaming about a national brand, we set the foundation and we created a business model that was not better than anyone else, but it was different. And that was asking the question, how do you create balance between profitability and a social conscience? It began with health care for every single employee, way before the law.
Right.
As well as equity in the form of stock options for every employee who works over 20 hours a week.
Which is part-time. You're giving part-time for...
And as a result of that, the essence of Starbucks' success and the equity of the brand was really built inside out, not consumer-facing first, but from the culture, the values, and the guiding principles. And we said this. We said, we can't exceed the expectations of our customers unless us as leaders and managers exceed the expectations of our people.
So Howard Schultz from Starbucks, a client of ours. And I should say, Starbucks is not perfect. And none of the examples which I'm going to share with you today are perfect companies. They all have their challenges. And we know Starbucks does too. But I think it's just important to tee things up like that an organization from its inception existed for more than just making money and put its employees really at the heart of why the company exists. This space, we call it, in Edelman, we call it business plus social purpose, but it has many different names. And that is actually a problem within our space. So you hear the names like citizenship and sustainability and philanthropy and responsibility and CSR, and all these different names are kind of confusing and actually don't help the work that we try and do. We call it purpose, and we say that purpose is an organization's reason for being beyond making money. So that's why we asked that question at the beginning. What's the purpose of your company? And it should be about more than profitability. And I'm going to share with you some examples of companies that I think are doing this well. But to start off with, I want to talk about why it's important to do this as a company. So, Edelman's a PR firm that we're not supposed to use the word PR firm. In fact, we call ourselves today a communications marketing firm. Not marketing communications, but communications marketing. And actually, a lot of the examples I'm going to talk about are going to have pieces of advertising or marketing that go along with them, not because we are an ad firm, but because that's a visual way of explaining a lot of the programs that we actually work on on a communication side as well. But Edelman does a lot of research, and we use other people's research as well. So just some stats here to talk about why this is an interesting landscape, and you can't see the whole slide here, but around the globe, companies and brands are moving sustainability towards the center of strategy. And that's another important thing about purpose. CSR, sustainability, is very often an adjunct function. It's something which stands aside. Purpose is when you start to put the work that you do within sustainability and think very holistically about everything within the firm inside the group strategy. So it's not something adjunct. And you know, our research backs this up. 81% of respondents to our trust survey agree that a company can take actions that both increase profits and improve the economic and social conditions in the communities where they operate. 92% of people want to do business with brands that share their values. 87% believe that business should place at least equal weight on their own business and society. So these are, maybe today these numbers would look different in Latvia, I don't know. But what's really important is to think about the trends, okay? Because 3 years ago, these numbers were still way above 50%, but they were 20 points off. And it's important to think about what's the movement, the momentum towards this place. Don't take our word for it. McKinsey, companies that succeed in building a profitable relationship with the external world define themselves through what they contribute, generating long-term value for shareholders by delivering value to society as well. I know people who work at McKinsey, and I know that this is the way they are coaching and advising their clients right now. They are, you know, the world's leading business consultancy firm is saying to their clients, you need to think about more than just profits and making money. More McKinsey stats here, just, and again, think about the trends here. So alignment with the company's business goals, missions, or value, up to 43% now. Reputation, which is where this space comes from. You know, this is about being green and helping our brand. Actually seeing that tailing off or flattening out to around 36%. Is it about cost cutting? Is this about being more operationally efficient? Well, actually, you're seeing that come down now to 26%. So that first box is really important. Alignment with the company strategy is now the most important area of why sustainability or purpose should be put at the heart of business strategy. And of course, the consumer's evolving as well. The pressures from the outside world. Consumers are more vocal. They're more demanding. They're more empowered through technology. And they're more concerned about the world and society around them. So a lot more pressures and a lot more transparency for companies in this space now. And a lot of that's coming from millennials. So more than 50% of millennials believing that innovation and social development should be the primary purpose of business. And I know that many of you will see the same things that I do. Someone who comes in for a job interview today, if they're a millennial, this is one of the first questions they're asking me. You know, what is the purpose of your company? Why do you exist? Can I work within the business social purpose or the sustainability space? This is a driver, and again, it's only going to become more important. So I'm going to shift now and talk about building trust, because a lot of the work we do is about how do you create a greater trust in the organization. And you know, I'm not going to go through the data in detail, but I would encourage you to look at the Edelman Trust Barometer to get more on this. But a few stats in this interconnected world. We do another piece of IP called brand share. So here are some of the benefits. When you meet the societal benefits of the rational, which is basically the business, the emotional and the societal, an increase of 12% in consumers willing to recommend a brand, to share brand content, to share their own personal data, which is something that people put obviously a lot of value on, to defend a brand, and 8% actually shifting to purchase that brand. So trust matters, it makes a difference. I already talked about the need for companies to put profits and economic societal benefit into communities, but 75% believe that a company can be more profitable by finding ways to solve social and community problems. And we'll talk about some examples of that in a minute. Behaviors based on trust. So again, this is the risk and the reward side, because a lot of the time we're talking about it in a defensive way. You know, what happens to distrusted companies? 63% saying they would refuse to buy those products and services. 58% criticizing to a friend and colleague. And we know how important that peer-to-peer relationship is in terms of building brands. Sharing negative opinions online, 37%. and actually selling shares. And if you look at the whole movement today to actually sell away from hydrocarbons and carbon-intensive industries, we see that again as it's a slowly building but important trend. And then, of course, you've got the upside, but I've spoken about some of that already. These are what we call the 16 attributes of building trust. And the way we usually present this in Edelman is we talk about purpose as one of these. But actually, if you look at these clusters, for me, they absolutely all fit within the purpose space. So acting with integrity, engaging with employees and communities, the products and services which a company makes, the purpose of the organization, and the operations, these are all things which fit within the broad space that I work in, called business and social purpose. And I'm going to talk about companies which I think in every single one of these clusters are doing things well. So I think, one of the real takeaways from this presentation should be it's not if, but it's how is this going to get done. And I want to share some inspiration with you for that. Not sure what's happening with the slides. I've got beautiful pictures here, so I'm going to enjoy these while you look at these lovely blank slides behind me. But I'm going to talk about Chipotle. I don't think Chipotle exists in Latvia or in the Baltics, but it's one of the fastest growing fast food chains in America and around the world. It's basically Mexican food, but healthy Mexican food. And they really focus on the fact that they've got ethical business practices, and they've been incredibly transparent and open around those business practices. And that's really difficult to do for a fast food chain, because ultimately that's what they are. And they were once owned by McDonald's before they had a leveraged buyout and became independent. And I'm going to share with you a piece of advertising that we worked on both the advertising, but we didn't do the creative, but then we did the campaign, the communications campaign behind it.
Just guessing at numbers and figures, pulling the puzzles apart. Questions of science, science and progress don't speak as loud as my heart. Nobody said it was easy. It's such a shame for us to part. Nobody said it was easy. No one ever said it would be so hard. I'm going back to the start.
So I absolutely love that. And this is a piece of content and a campaign which has had 2 billion media impressions. One thing which is important to reference when you talk about an example like Chipotle, you go out as a fast food company and do this, you better make sure it's authentic. You better make sure that when consumers or media or anyone else scratches under the surface, that what they don't find is the big, ugly industrial farm, but they really do find a new way of dealing with the supply chain, a new way of dealing with farmers. And Chipotle has not had it all easy, right? This has definitely put a target on their back, but they've also differentiated themselves. And for those consumers who are trying to make more ethical and healthier choices about fast food, it's been an absolute driver. And as I say, Chipotle is one of the most successful fast food companies growing in the world today. CVS, again, I had such a nice picture on this, but okay, we can't see it. Nice. CVS is one of the leading drugstores in the US. And last year, in consultation, or following some work that we did with them, they decided to stop selling cigarettes in their stores. Now, the cigarette business for them was around a $2 billion business. And they said, we're not going to do it anymore. So at the time they did it, they said, well, how can a drugstore, where we're selling things to try and make people healthier, be selling cigarettes at point of sale at the same time? It doesn't fit anymore with the values of our business. So we're going to give up that $2 billion in revenue. 6 months later, they reported 13% sales growth. So they didn't lose a dime. They actually had 13% sales growth within 6 months. 6 months. And it wasn't just about stopping selling cigarettes. It was about starting engagements, starting conversations with consumers about stopping smoking. And they've had 100,000 engagements with consumers since then around stopping smoking, and they're actually selling a lot more medication now to help people with that, and also things like the nicotine chewing gum and stuff like that. So an organization that says we're going to use an engagement platform not just to make a fundamental shift in our business around our ethics, but we're also going to use it to actually stimulate new business. They gave up $2 billion in sales, and their sales are growing 13%. Levi's, can't see this one either. Levi's, let me start the video, and then I'll talk about it in a second.
How would you approach manufacturing today if you knew all the challenges around us in the world? It takes 42 liters of water on average to finish every pair of jeans. So we ask ourselves the question, what if we took the water out, what would happen? Levi's Waterless is a platform to look at manufacturing in a different way. And it's really looking at design as one continuous circle to ensure that we reduce the impact on the environment. The beauty of denim is the ability for it to wear in without necessarily washing it or treating it beforehand. We used to put water in the stone washing machines to enable a specific result aesthetically. And we removed that particular element and washed the jeans with dry stones, and we found that the result was very similar. The last piece is using ozone machines, which is an interesting piece because ozone is a natural component in the air. It transforms water almost like it were bleach. We're able to reduce water consumption severely, sometimes as much as just using a quarter cup.
Okay, I'm going to stop at that in the interest of time. But here you have the world's leading jeans manufacturer saying, how can we, at the same time as claiming that we're environmentally sensitive, how can we justify using 14 liters of water to make a pair of jeans? What if we were to take that entire 14 liters away and take it down to a cup? And so they've innovated around their products and services with that purpose mindset. They've integrated purpose into their business strategy and say, okay, so what things don't make sense anymore? CVS says it doesn't make sense for us to sell cigarettes. Levi says it can't make sense for us to be using this much water in our manufacturing cycle. So of course they save money, but they're also launched a new line of waterless jeans, and that line has been growing at 30% per year. We're not going to watch it again.
How would you approach manufacturing?
No. So Starbucks, lovely picture of Howard Schultz here. I'm going to enjoy that. Starbucks, we've heard about a little bit already, but it's not just around the employee engagement, which we saw at the beginning. It's also about how Starbucks works to protect and improve the environment, to put society's needs in their everyday business. So anyone here who's been to a Starbucks will know that there's a board up in there talking about community initiatives that anyone's able to put up there, but also community initiatives that their staff are actively engaged in. So they created programs that positively impact the local community. And they did this because of the values of the company, but they also did it because with a Starbucks springing up on every corner, or sometimes 2 or 3 on a street between those 2 corners, people were saying, look, you're driving out the mum and dad shops, you're driving out the coffee community centers. And so they said, okay, we've got this enormous retail footprint. How can we use that for good? And I'm working with a lot of clients right now in other industries who are saying, we've got this retail footprint. How can we use that place in the community for good? Starbucks is a great example of that. Now, as I said, they've done some great work. I think we've done a lot of that good work with them, but they're also not immune to criticism. So they launched, many of you will know, they launched a campaign recently to engage with customers around issues of racism, and that's not been successful. It was a very, very difficult one to manage. I think the aspiration of Starbucks was good. I think the execution was not ideal. The last example I want to give you is Unilever. So Unilever it's been a client of mine for a couple of years, or I've worked on Unilever business for a couple of years. And I think it's definitely the best example of an organization that's put sustainability and purpose. They have their Unilever Sustainable Living Plan. They put it right at the heart of their strategy. So they've got highly regarded and widely admired top leadership with Paul Polman and his leadership team. But they've also shown that they've used this strategy, Paul's strategy, and through it they've delivered consistently high financial returns to investors. And the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan, which you see here, what's interesting about it is that it goes throughout every single part of the business. It's about improving health and well-being, reducing their environmental impact, and enhancing livelihoods. And it's got 50 targets that go along with this. But a couple of the key things is that they are looking to impact positively the health and well-being of 1 billion people on the planet. They're looking to double their sales, and at the same time, half the environmental impact of what they do. And then it goes through all of their different product categories, and they have targets against each of these things like health and hygiene and greenhouse gases, water usage and waste. But they've also got the people really underpinning it. Every single employee, full-time employee at Unilever, has a sustainable living plan target associated in their development plan. Every single employee. It's not something that happens in the sustainability team. It's something which every single employee in the company has a responsibility for delivering as well. So let me wrap this up. I'm not going to show this video in the interest of time, but I want to wrap this up so that we've got some time for discussion. Critical insights here. Doing this means building from business goals and stakeholder needs. That's where you start. What is our reason for existing in the world? What are the needs and what are the impacts of our business, and how do we address those in a positive way? It requires senior leadership to get involved. So senior level, cross-functional. It's not something which exists in the sustainability department. It's something which runs through the business strategy. Finding the relevant and compelling issue or issues. So it should be something which is authentic. It shouldn't be something which is very, very far away from the business that you're involved in. Partnerships are important. Partnerships bring credibility. The Unilever Sustainable Living Plan has been built around NGO partnerships and other relationships, establishing organizations like the Roundtable for Sustainable Palm Oil, just one example. And embracing emotional narratives. One thing which our trust barometer shows us, and you can go and have a look at the research, is that you need to repeat these stories in an emotional way anywhere between 5 and 7 times before they start to stick. So an emotional narrative that you repeat time and time again in order to establish that message hitting home with consumers. And like I say, it has to be authentic. If it's just putting yourself out there without it really underpinning the business, what happens is BP, right? Well, as soon as you have a huge problem, people look at it and say, okay, this was just PR or it was just advertising. So we don't want that. So I want to stop there. I'm not even going to try and say thank you in Latvian, but I at least Googled it. So thank you, and I would love to get a few minutes for questions. Questions? Questions? Yes. So it's not about a split between how much good do we do and how much money we do. It's about how do you make more money by doing good. So CVS was the example. If you turn it down a little bit. CVS was the example of a company that said, well, we're going to give up $2 billion in revenue, and they've turned that into a 13% sales growth. So what they've given up in $2 billion, they actually made up plus 13%. So it's not about sacrificing profitability. If you sacrifice profitability doing this, That might happen over the short term, but if you sacrifice profitability over the long term, it won't work. And again, Unilever is the example, another example of that, where they said, this is going to be our business strategy, this is how we're going to grow. So we're going to halve our environmental impact, we're going to double our positive social impact, reach 1 billion people, and we're going to double our revenues between now and 2020. Doubling their revenues, halving the environmental impact, doubling their positive social and community impact. Yes? I can.
I come from an industry where we fly airplanes and we burn quite a lot of fuel. So I come from an industry where we burn a lot of fuel as an airline. And we started Europe's first green flights for turboprop aircraft. It's a nice project. But we, of course, save a lot of fuel on this. And like up to 300 kilograms of emissions per every flight. And that's a lot of money. We save about $2 million annually just because of flying these green flights. So my question here is, after the presentation, should I be really ashamed to say that we save money on this?
No.
We have better profitability out of this? Or we should just think of these nice green and lovely thingies?
No. So the research shows that consumers expect you to make money. Consumers know that business is in the game of making money, but they expect you to give back with that through your operations, not just financially, not philanthropy. They expect you to integrate the thought process around how you impact society while you're making money. Right? So they expect you to fly planes, they expect you to get them from A to B in the cheapest way possible, but they expect you to come up with ideas of how you're going to reduce environmental impact and cut down emissions. So again, I really want to emphasize it. If this feels like it's an add-on to what you're already doing in your business, and it's just a way of trying to make it look better, or it's a way of, even if it is a way of saving money, if there's an environmental impact to saving money, then it's absolutely something that you should continue to highlight. And consumers expect you to communicate with them. It's another thing which you'll see in our trust research. They expect companies to communicate about the good that they're trying to do. They expect you to do it in an authentic way, but they expect you to do it. So being shy about it is absolutely not the right way. You should go out and engage.
Oh, we definitely do, yes.
Yeah. Good,
Okay.
Good to hear.
Thank you.
Maybe, I know it's time, one last question, if there is one. Anyone have the last burning question? No? If the person before, and I'm sure there are other people in the room, who felt like profits were the reason that you exist, if that's still the way you feel, then I'd love to talk to you in the break, because it means I haven't done a good enough job at making the business case for you. So thanks for your time, thanks for your attention.